Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Super excited about today's projects. So let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. All right, this is some gardening twine. It is 100% cotton, and that's really important to note because of what I'm going to be doing with this twine. So I've gotten it unraveled. I also have a starfish and that glass vase. It's like a cube vase that I've had in my stash for a while. It was going in the trash, and so I picked it up. So at any rate, I am going to first try and figure out how much of this twine I need to cover about a little less than a third of my vase. So I was just twisting it around and around until I got to what I thought was the right amount. And so once I had that figured out, I went ahead and trimmed that off. And now I want a second length the same size. So I just went ahead and well, you can see what I did. I kind of lined up the ends and I'm pulling both strands together until I get it to where it's the same length. I cut it off and now I'm separating them into two separate little balls of twine. So now I've just grabbed out this container. I've got pool and I've got ocean. Now, I probably should have just grabbed a bowl. It would have made it probably a little bit easier to do this. But I'm mixing a little bit of the ocean into the pool. And I'm gonna just give it a good mix with my popsicle stick. And then I'm gonna start adding water to it. So I'm essentially wanting to make, would you call this a bath? I'm not really sure. I'm gonna be dyeing my twine. Okay, so I wanna make sure that it's nice and mixed and that it's also thin enough and that I have enough of it so that I can dye my twine. So once I got that all good and mixed, I went ahead and started putting my twine in it. I wasn't really quite sure how I was going to do this at first. Again, like I said, if I'd had a bowl, it might have been a better idea, but this actually worked out quite well for me. So it did get a little bit messy, I'm not gonna lie, because I just kind of ended up putting my fingers in there and pulling the twine all through the paint, just making sure that it was all saturated and getting the color. So you can kind of see here what I'm doing. And I just worked it until all of the twine was completely covered. Once I had it completely covered, I grabbed actually I had a paper towel tube, just the roll, and I put some paper towels back on it, and I'm going to use this to wrap the twine around. I'm kind of pulling it through my fingers. I don't know if you can see that really, but between my finger and my thumb, I kind of dragged it through to remove the excess paint and twirled it around the little paper towel thing to try and help get some of the excess paint off of it and let it get dry. So as you saw, I've now started adding in some more of the dark ocean color to my mixture here. I'm just going to go ahead and continue to leverage what I had here. And this, I loved the way that this was looking when I was trying to mix it. As you can see, it's not, the color isn't completely blending. It made me think of pour paints. And then I was like, I wonder if I could drag a piece of paper through this and pick up some of those different colors. So I pulled a watercolor paper and I tore the edges of it to make it a little bit more interesting and also so that it would fit in my container. And then I kind of let it drip. It didn't quite work out the way I had hoped, but I'll show you what I end up doing with that a little bit later. So I continued to mix it until I had it where I wanted it with the darker color. And then I did the same exact thing with my other ball of twine, just making sure that I've got this all completely covered. And once I had it run all through the darker blue, I did the same thing again. This time I didn't quite get my fingers all in it, which was a little bit better. I kind of used my popsicle stick, as you can see. I'm just kind of dragging it through with the popsicle stick, so I wasn't a complete mess by the time I was done with the dark blue. But then I used the other end of the paper towel roll. You can see I just put some more paper towel around the light blue to keep my hands a little bit cleaner and wrapped the dark blue around this. And you could kind of see how I was kind of trying to remove the excess paint. Now, I had a lot of the paint left, so I went ahead and just poured it into a little container to save for later. And then I did unravel it. I set it out on paper towels because I figured it would dry faster this way. Came back a day later, it was all dry. I've got my 2 colors, and now I am ready to apply them to my, well, actually I balled them up, you can see. So I did that. And the reason I did that, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be tangled and that it was going to be easier to work with. Okay, so once I got it all balled up, now I'm ready to start applying it to my vase. So I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue just down in that corner, and I'm going to attach my little twine. And I did the same thing in the far corner. Those are the only places where I applied hot glue for this project, only in the corners. I did not bother to do it along the length of the container. So I wanted to make sure that it was as clean as possible, and I didn't want a lot of glue visible. So I opted to work with the corners, and it worked out quite nicely. And so I just did it at those 4 bottom corners, and now I can go ahead and wrap it just above that starting line. And so then it went really pretty quickly, just as quickly as I was able to flip this vase around. And it's a relatively large vase. I think it's a 6" by 6", if I'm not mistaken. So I just continued to wrap it until I got it to a little less than 1/3 of the way up my vase. And once, you can see I'm kind of trying to eyeball if I'm 1/3 of the way up. And then I ended it at the same place, same corner, I should say, that I started at, because I wanted all of my seams to be at the same corner. Just in case I want to be able to like hide it and put that corner to the back of whatever. So I trimmed that off and now I'm starting up with my lighter color blue, just a tiny little bit of hot glue there. Got that sealed down. I did a little bit of hot glue on the next edge at that next corner, just to give it a little bit of extra support. Sorry, I'm like getting rid of some of the hot glue that was sticking out there. But gonna add a little bit of hot glue here. And that was it. And then I continued on. I didn't add more hot glue at the other corners. I just continued on my way once I knew that it was secure. Got about the same and actually it was exactly the same number of strands of the light blue as I'd had for the dark blue. And then I started in with the natural color. Now this spool, so to say, of the gardener's twine is something I picked up at Habitat for Humanity several years ago. It's been in my stash and I only paid 50 cents for it. So this project is really inexpensive. So once I got to the top, I started anchoring it in the corners again, just making sure that it wasn't going to slip up and off of the top of the vase. So just anchoring that down all the way around the top. I think there's one place where I did anchor it in the middle of the row, just to give it a little bit of extra stability because it was really kind of at the edge of the top and I was afraid it might pop up over. So I went ahead and did that, and I think it was like right at the end of what I was working on. And I probably just did it right there out of frame, so sorry about that. But once I had it all completely done, I trimmed that off. And I'm just tucking that end into the inside corner and just securing that with some hot glue. Now I am ready to apply my little starfish to the outside. I'm figuring out which way I want him to be sitting on my piece. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some hot glue. Sorry, I'm out of frame again. I'm just putting it on the back of the starfish in the places that I thought were going to be hitting the twine. I missed in a couple of places, including the top there. So I just kind of grabbed my scissors and dragged the hot glue out of there. And you could probably see I was sticking the nozzle of my glue gun in there and just gave it a little bit extra glue where it needed it. And that's it. DIY number 2. For this project, I've got some of that leftover paint from the first project. I actually worked on this while that twine was drying. So this paint here is still wet. It's from right after I had poured the excess off into those containers. And I have a wood round here. I think this is probably an 18-inch wood round. It's been in my stash for a while. I honestly don't remember where I got it. It was either Michael's or Home Depot, I think. But I'm using a baby wipe to apply some of this paint. Now, I was inspired by some things I saw on Wayfair. They were wood designs, but with really subtle colors, and they were like reminiscent of the beach, like beach inspired. And I thought that they were so pretty, and I wanted to try to see if I could do something like that. So here is the pool again. So if you'll recall, the darker color is largely ocean with some of the pool mixed in. This is the pool straight up that I've got on this other wipe. And then I'm going to be bringing in some other colors as well. Castle is one that I'm going to use as a sand color. Sunny Porch is one that I'll be using, which is a yellow tone in a minute. And then I'll use my Adirondack White. And then I'm also going to be using Salmon by Home Decor, and that is like a salmony coral color. Actually, I think it might be called salmon coral or coral salmon. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check. But I'm just going over it. Here I am with the castle. And I'm just going over it as much as I need to get it to the shading that I want. Again, I'm looking for this to be relatively subtle. So I'm just going over it again and again with the baby wipe. If I get too much paint on it, I'll flip it to a clean side of the baby wipe and wipe it off. I'll wipe off the excess. And then if I need a little bit more, I can always add a little bit more, right? Here I'm coming in with the white. You can see it's kind of blending in with some of the other colors. It's not stark. I was trying to figure out a way to kind of make it look like the foam coming off of the water as the waves come up onto the beach. That's kind of what I'm thinking about here as I am working through this. Now, I have never done anything like this particular piece, you guys. I didn't know if this was going to work. I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off, but I encourage you to try because I love the finished piece. I love it so much. I'm trying to figure out where I can hang it in my house because I am definitely keeping this particular project. I absolutely love it, and I hope that you enjoy it too. And again, I want to encourage you to give it a shot if it's something that you find inspiring, something that you like the look of, because it is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. You want to be patient with yourself. Here I'm coming in with the Sunny Porch. Be patient with yourself and think about layering the colors on. You can always go back and add more. If it doesn't look the way you want it, then wipe it away or smudge it. Right here, I'm kind of smudging my little sun that I was trying to create there. I didn't want it to look like a solid ball. I wanted it to look hazy and glowy, like you would imagine for a soft sunset. That was what I was thinking. So here I'm coming in with the salmon coral. I think that is what it's called, is the salmon coral. And just trying to find a clean area on my wipe. And again, I'm using very little paint here. I don't know if you could see that I just grabbed a little bit out of the lid and I kind of smooshed it around in my baby wipe. So I'm looking for subtlety here. A little bit will go a long way with this type of a project. So, and again, you can always add more. And to some extent you can remove it, right, with a clean baby wipe. So yeah, I would say go for it and have fun with it. And remember just that you can come back and layer the colors on, because you're going to see me coming back in with more blue in a little bit. But right now I'm just trying to think about, if I'm looking at the sunset, where are the colors hitting, right? Where are they in the sky? Where are they hitting the water? And I am kind of using the natural wood grain here to my advantage. And I'm allowing the wood grain to kind of determine where my horizon line is versus me forcing it. So I love this. I really do. But leave me a comment and let me know if you like this project or if it's just not your cup of tea. But I'm adding in some more of the salmon. And again, I'm just trying to blend it all in. Adding a little bit more of the yellow. Again, just layering it and building it until I get it to where I want it. Because I felt a lot of the time like I was wiping it all away, and then I would apply a little bit more, and I felt like I was wiping it all away again. But what I did find was that it was not necessarily perceptible to my eye, but it definitely was building up the color because it gained a little bit of strength with each layer, so to speak, that I applied. And there I got a little bit too much, so I'm just going to grab another baby wipe and wipe it down, right? But you can see there's still some remnant there, so I'm kind of applying it, wiping it away, applying it, wiping it away until I get that effect that I'm looking for. So it's starting to come together a little bit here. You can kind of start to see my sunshine in the sky with the sunset colors and the reflection on the water. Hopefully you can see it. So here I'm going to check it out for a second and just see how it looks to my eye, see if I need to apply more paint anywhere, different colors, and this is where I come back in with the blue. I decided I needed some more depth, so bringing back in the darker blue. There was a little piece of wood sticking up there, so took care of that. And yeah, and this is probably the kind of piece that I could continue to work on for quite some time, but at some point you've got to just say, okay, you know what? I think that's as good as I'm going to get it, and you've got to let it go because you'll have diminishing returns after a little while, I think. But you might have seen that I was just putting a little bit more white on there. So grabbing the white up again, just trying to picture where it might need to be placed. And there's no wrong way to do this. There really isn't. Nature is not perfect, right? Let me know what you think of this. DIY number 3. All right, this is from the Dollar Tree, and these are just little stickers on this charger, and I decided I was going to peel them off and do something else with it because I really liked the kind of distressed paint that was on this charger. Now, it did pull up a little bit of the paint here and there as I was removing those stickers, so I just grabbed my Adirondack white chalk paint and a chip brush, and I am just dry brushing over the areas that were affected by the removal of those stickers. So really light strokes, very, very little paint, just a teeny tiny bit on the tip of my brush and sweeping it over the areas again that looked like they needed a little bit of extra assistance after removing those stickers. So now I have a Dollar Tree stencil. This is a flexible stencil. I thought about using it maybe on a curved object, but for right now I am going to be using it on our charger. Meet me by the sea. And grabbing out my ocean chalk paint, I'm gonna grab a makeup sponge to use for applying the paint, and then just grabbing a piece of paper towel so that I have something to dab this on. You don't wanna load it up too much because if you have too much paint on your sponge, that is when you are gonna get bleeds. So I'm grabbing just a teeny bit of paint, tapping it off on the paper towel first, and then moving over to my design and just taking my time applying the paint through the stencil. Now, one thing you can do to assist with the potential of having bleeds is to go over your stencil first with your base color. So I could have come through here and applied the stencil with my Adirondack white paint first and then go over it with the blue, and that would have, so if it bled, it would have bled with the white, and then it's probably sealed, and then you can come back over it with the actual color that you want to use. Some people also will use Mod Podge and do the same thing. They'll Mod Podge it first. I tend to prefer the paint method, but you can do either one, and either method works. I have done both in the past. I just happen to prefer the paint method. I'll use the Mod Podge method if I'm working on natural wood. So if I don't have a color, a base color, then I'll use the Mod Podge method. But if I have a painted base, I will use the paint method. So here we are revealing our beautiful stencil job. And I've got some shells that I'm pulling out of a pack that was also from the Dollar Tree. I'm just finding several little shells that I can place around the image to give it some more interest. Gonna kind of move them around so that they fit a little bit better. And I'm gonna swap out that top one with one of the ones on the left because that top one was just a little bit too big and I didn't want it covering up any of my letters. So gonna grab that and swap that. And once I had them all arranged the way I wanted, I grabbed my hot glue and I went about adhering them. Now I'm applying the hot glue just inside the edge of the shell. And the reason for that is gravity, because I know when I flip them back over, that glue is going to drop and settle, and it's going to adhere everything to the plate, and then I won't have glue scooching out around the edges. So hopefully that's a helpful little tip. So right around the inside edge, and then I pulled out my raffia because I wanted to have another little something. And I was trying to just grab a couple of pieces here, but it was all kind of caught up with itself. And so yeah. So I had to undo the whole thing. I finally got my hands on a couple of pieces here, and I'm just going to wrap it around itself, like just back and forth like you would with like looping it around like a bow. I didn't want a bow per se, so I'm just wrapping the ends around the middle to create a knot, and then I'm actually going to cut the loops on either side in a second. But first I'm just making sure that my center is all nice and tight, trimming off the excess ends. Oh, and while I've got the scissors, I'm going to do the loops now apparently. I want this to be reminiscent of seagrass. So that was kind of what I was thinking in my head. Just making sure that all my ends are tied securely there, not tied, glued down so that everything is nice and secure. And then I'll go ahead and glue it to my charger. Then I grabbed a couple of little pieces of the raffia that were cut off to remove some of the glue that was kind of oozing out from underneath, so I could get rid of that without burning myself, and making sure all of my loops are cut and just kind of pulling it apart. And that's it for that, but I'm going to go ahead and put a hanger on the back of it. So flipping it over, grabbing a piece of twine from my stash. This is just a scrap piece that I had, and it was exactly what I needed. I'll save the rest of it for another project, making sure that I've got it heading in the right direction here, and that it'll be centered when I apply the hanger. Adding a little bit more hot glue over top of the twine just to make sure that it's nice and secure. And that's really going to be it. So, oh, this is the backing to a sticker. I figured I'm out of my parchment paper right now, so I was using this with the understanding that I'd be able to peel it away from the hot glue without it sticking to the hot glue. Now, you certainly could put something across the back if you wanted it to be a little bit more secure and a little cleaner, maybe. It didn't occur to me until just now that you could totally leave something like that there. But let me know what you think of this one. now it's time for a shout out timeout. Wow, Kathy has been busy. These are all awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. Okay, I promised I was going to show you what I ended up doing with this. It curled all up on me as it was drying. This is the watercolor paper that I had kind of set in the paint that we were using for the first project. Now, because it was all curled up, you could see I used my heat gun on it to kind of loosen up the paper a little bit. That helped a little, but I'm now using popsicle sticks across the back of it just to provide it with some stability and keep it from curling up again. So applying these just with hot glue. And then you might have also noticed that I have another Dollar Tree stencil off to the left there. And I'm going to be using that little seahorse for this project. I flipped this right side up. Well, it is right side up in my opinion. There was some kind of brightness at the top that you see there, and I thought of it as like the rays of sunshine coming down from the top of the surface of the water. So anyway, that was my thought process with what was up and what was down. So I've got my Adirondack white chalk paint, and I had grabbed another little makeup sponge, and I've got my paper towel to dab it off, and I'm just going to go through and apply the paint to our little seahorse. And he's so sweet. I love seahorses. I think they're cool. I felt like I needed a little something extra, so I'm just using a little bit of white paint along the edges here, just using my little sponge with the remnants of the paint that are on my paper towel. So dry sponging, I guess you could call it. But then I still felt like it needed something more. So I grabbed out a piece of raffia. Again, I would kind of think of this as like seagrass in this instance. So that's the purpose it's serving for me. And I grabbed my little hole punch, and I had to be careful of the popsicle sticks through here. So I probably would have spaced these a little differently if I hadn't had the popsicle sticks to avoid, but this worked out just fine. I punched 5 holes along the length of each side, and then I set about weaving my seagrass through the holes, again just to try and give it some interest, and also it served to create a little hanger for this piece. So this is very rustic, very simple, but I think it's really, really pretty. I think it's super cute the way that it turned out. So I'll be curious to know what you all think of this piece. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to deal with the top of it there. So I ended up wrapping it back through that same hole again before I created the loop to serve as the hanger, and then continued on down the other side. So just flipping it back through the same hole, and I was thinking I might be able to kind of tie it off somehow. That didn't really work out quite the way that I thought it might in this at this moment, but I do go back and do something with it in a little bit that you'll see. So once I got the one side done, I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and just doing the same exact thing, but just in the reverse order. So I'm starting at the top. I'm going to flip that through, making sure that it's the same on both sides, and then weave it in and out until I get back down to the bottom. And this is the kind of thing you could do with kids or grandkids. This is such an easy project, and they could paint their picture whatever color they want. They could use a stencil, or they could make a drawing. So now I'm just tying this off at the back, getting it as tight as I can there so that I don't have a lot of loose raffia hanging out. And then because I was down towards the bottom, I didn't want it hanging out the bottom. I didn't want it to be visible. So I'm just going to tack it down with some hot glue, making sure that it's not going to go anywhere, and then just trimmed the excess. So now I'm looking at this top piece and I want it to be the hanger to be really at the top. So I grabbed a couple of scrap pieces of raffia and I'm just going to tie it off at the top. I had taken the raffia and threaded it underneath the raffia that was looped through, so you can maybe see there that I'm sticking it under the raffia that's secured and then also wrapping it around the loop that I left there and just tying it off at the top, just using a simple knot, just like if you were tying a knot in your shoelaces, and then trimming off the excess, and that's it. Let me know what you think of this one. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the project, remember, give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know which one was your favorite. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.